Hi, this is Shell of Shell's Creations, and today I want to show you how you can line up the CU tag ties with the holes in your tags. It's a little easier to do it the other way around. We're going to take some tags and make holes in the right place so that the ties line up. I'm going to be using the CU tag ties, CU tag tie 1 front, CU tag tie 1 back, and CU tag ties number 2 in front also. Okay, and what I have on this canvas is just some tags. This is actually a file I use when I'm making tags, so some of them are layered, but it'll give us a good idea of what to start with. So first let's start on this first one. And on this first one, let's go ahead and drag in tag tie 1 front. Okay, I found when I was making these tags, I'm going to go ahead and make the grids disappear. I use Command or Control and the apostrophe or quote button will make those come and go. Okay, when I was making these, I noticed that this ribbon across the top here sometimes overlapped the paper just a little bit, and you're going to need to line them up perfectly kind of for where you want. And so it's not a smooth straight across edge right here because this kind of smudges down over the top, and so you kind of want the point over here near the edge but not exactly on the edge. You can kind of play with it. Let's see, I need to rotate that one a little bit because I think this side sticks down too far. Another option, if it were sticking down too far, I could also trim off the corner of it. Could go, you know what, this is going to kind of be a bulge right here, and kind of just take off the corner right there so that it looks like it folds down over top. Okay, I'll show you the other way that I would rotate it. So let's go back to our move tool, and I've got this side right where I want it, and so I'm going to move right up here by clicking on that little crosshairs right in the middle, and I'm going to move the crosshair to right here. And what that means is now when I spin it, it's going to spin rotating around that new crosshair. So I want that next edge to be just about right there. And one of the things you'll find when you're using these tag ties, when you're finished, make sure you haven't left a crack or a crevice here by just filling it in. On a layer below the tag, you could just go ahead and kind of fill in that space in between. Just with something behind it so that you don't have to worry about there being a crack or a crevice in there. I would do that with a finished tag when I was all finished. Okay, now let's make sure we get our hole lined up in the right place. When I made these, I made them based on just a standard hole punch. I hole punched a bunch of papers and tied them all together, and away it went. And so that's about 1/4 of an inch. And so I'm going to go back and turn my grid back on, and I have my grid line set at 4 per inch, so that's about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to go to the elliptical marquee, and I've got snap to grid on, and make a circle that is 1/4 of an inch. But that's not where I want it, so what I'm really going to make is my own digital hole punch. Holding down the Alt and hitting the delete key, that will fill that space, and Command or Control D will deselect. Now I want to move my hole punch to exactly the spot I want it. So I would move it to a layer below the ribbon so that we can see the effect it has. Now the ribbon sticks just barely past the hole, so you don't want it right here because there's a little thickness to the ribbon that will go past it, and so you just kind of need to move it around to where you want it. Now, I have this tag centered exactly on this line, but my hole's not centered, so I'm going to select the hole and the tag and slide both of them over so that the hole ends up centered on the tag. I'm using my nudge tool, my arrow keys, to nudge it back and forth to where I want it. Okay, that is where I want that hole to be. Now, if I hold down my Command or Control button and click on the circle, it will select it, and then I'm going to make that layer disappear and go back to my tag layer and hit delete. And there you go, a hole in just the right spot for that tag. Okay, let's go ahead and do this next one. Let's put tag tie 1 back on this one. Drag it in. When you're dragging and you have tabs open, if you will drag it up to the title of the file you want it on and then drag it back down onto the canvas and let go, it will duplicate it inside of that one. Okay, let's put this one about where we want it. I'm going to make those grids disappear again so that I can play with it. Okay, this one is kind of the same thing. Where it overlaps is going to be right here in back, is right where it goes in behind your paper, and so that's the critical place to line it up. So right now I have this edge lined up exactly, so I'm going to do that same trick. I'm going to come up here and grab the crosshairs and line them up exactly right there. And I'm going to zoom in so I can see it a little better, because as you can see I've got a little gap right here, so I need to rotate this one just a smidgen. And a smidgen more until I see that disappear. Okay, let's try that. Yep, there we go. That's just the right spot right there. Okay, now we need to line up a hole on that one. I can actually use my same hole punch that I had before, so I'm going to turn that green layer back on, and I will bring it right over here on top of this tag. And I need this one to also go under the ribbon. So let's go ahead and move it under the ribbon so that I can see where I'm lining it up. And then it's just a matter of sliding it around. Again, you need to remember that there's a thickness to those ribbons, so they will go a little bit past the edge of the circle. You kind of want them to stick out into the center of the circle just a little ways. Let's make sure this one's lined up. Again, it's not the hole is not centered on my tag. My tag is centered on this grid line, and so I want both of them together. Hold down Shift and select both of them and move both of them together. And then I'll know that my circle is centered. Okay, the same process. Command or Control to select your hole punch, and then I need to select the tag layer. Let me see, is it this one? Yes, it is. And hit delete to cut that hole. Okay, so what happens if you have a little more decorative tag and you want your hole to be a little further in? This third tag that I have over here has 2 layers, and if I were to line up the hole in exactly the same place, it would practically cut through the edge right here. In fact, let's take this guy right here and drag him over here, and I think I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about. If you see right here, the place I would snip the hole in this one would be really close to the edge of the white. Not exactly on the edge, but really, really close to the edge. And it might look disproportionately close to the edge. Let me turn on that hole. There we go. See, if I were going to line that one up in about the right place, as you can see, it's really, really close to the edge there. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're going to include in your kit also a copy without the tag, you might go, that's not where I'd put the hole. So if you want the 2 of them to match, you might need to do some tricky things with the edge of the tag, with the tag tie itself. So I'm going to move that one in just a little bit further to where I would feel comfortable with a gap like that. Now I've got to fix that problem. And so let me show you a couple of different things. Not every tag tie will work for this technique. For example, this one, you're going to have a hard time with it where those are slanted. It would take some very creative crafting, but this one I think we might be able to make it work. It looks to me like this tag is pretty similar in this section right here and doesn't change much. So I'm going to go in with a rectangle marquee tool, and I'm going to steal that section right from there down, Command or Control J to duplicate it, and then I'm going to go ahead and just slide it down to a spot that's going to look pretty close to like it just has another layer of ribbon right there. So that's about the spot, and I'm not choosing it based on where my hole is. I'll have to move my hole again in a minute. I'm going to choose it based on what's going to look the most normal right here. All right, and now if I go into, I got to get rid of some of this ribbon right here where you can see that extra piece sticking down. on the back layer, and the same thing over here. Don't be afraid to tweak your CU so that it works for you and works for what you want to use it for. Now let's slide that just a little bit further in. Okay, there you go. That's what I would do if I just wanted it to be a little bit longer. Let's do that one more time on a different version, a different tag. I have one more tag that has the same concept. Let's drag this one in. Tag ties to front. Let's move that one over. See if we can get it lined up right. I'm going to need to move the grid and rotate it also. Move these little center crosshairs. Rotate until the other side touches down on the paper. And then let's remove my grid lines so that I can see if I've got it exactly where I want. When I have it right here, it looks like it goes a little bit on top of the paper, but when I move it up with one nudge, then I see a gap in between. And so if it were me, I probably would stick with the gap in between, and on a layer behind, I'm going to go ahead and kind of color in a dark shadowy area. That's where this is disappearing behind the paper. So let's choose a color that is one of these dark red colors back here. And then on a layer below the tag, like this one, I'm just going to go ahead and color in, well, I don't need a 600 pixel brush, but I do want to color in solid behind there. That makes it flow a little bit more smoothly. It doesn't merge over the top. And as you are lining these up, you might find ways that you want to just add a little bit there, more there. That extra dark will kind of give it a finish that makes it look almost like a shadow there. So I kind of like how that turns out. Okay, I'm going to link that layer to my brush or to my string layer so that they don't get offset again. Okay, but again, if I'm going to make a hole on this one's not too bad, but it still would have my hole. You know, these strings are actually a little bit wider. They're going to be about right there. That's not too bad. It's again really thin near the edge. So if you wanted to elongate this one, it's the same concept. Let's take a piece of it. The marquee tool will work just fine. This is the section of it that looks similar to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just select that part and Command or Control J. Let's just see if we can extend that just a little bit, not too much. All right, let's try right there now. This one is a little harder to make it a little more realistic looking. Let's play with it just a little bit. If I slide it right there, then my little lines are going to line up better. So I think I like that spot. And then let's take off the excess right here that's sticking out from behind. Whoa, that was more than I expected. Let's clean that up a little bit. I didn't realize there's that much sticking up from behind. All right, let's try that. Oops, wrong layer. There we go. And the other thing I would do is a real soft edged eraser on this. And you could do this with an eraser, or you could do it with a layer mask. Would be a little more forgiving, but because I'm working on this all at once, I'm going to go ahead and just use the eraser tool, the smooth soft edged brush, to kind of smooth those two together. All right, I'm going to merge that together. Okay, now I can move my tag, now I can move my little hole punch to right about the right spot. Now this one, because it has that curved little edge right there, that does tell you exactly where you want your hole to line up. It's right there. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to move this one and rotate this also just a little bit so that my hole, yeah, that looks to me like I've got the right proportion of string tucking down through the middle of my hole right there. And the only other thing, like I said, is if you want to make sure that your hole is lined up in the center of your tag, don't forget you got to make sure that that background one is checked. So I'm going to move those over until the center of that hole punch is right down that line where it's lined up right. Command or Control to select my hole punch. This time I need to hit backspace on my gray or my tan part of my tag layer and backspace on the white part of my tag layer. And there you go, that one's lined up. Now, of course, they need some shadowing to make everything look perfect, but that is how I would line up those tags and how I would modify the tags as necessary if I needed a hole that was a little further in. If you have any questions, you can reach me at shells.creations1@gmail.com. If you like these tutorials, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we'd also love it if you'd join us in our designer club, where we have 2 webinars a month where we answer questions and talk about designing tips, business tips, and everything that we can do to have fun as designers. I'll add a link to my designer club below. See you next time.